So this machine, we're gonna use our route-n to check the gateway IP because all the devices and the number of IoTs you can say are connected with my router gateway IP address, network device you can say. So through route-n, we can simply check the gateway IP of our network area, the LAN area. So we're gonna use a tool called Netdiscover to identify the number of hosts. So I'm gonna use -I for the interface of my NIC card. And right now I'm basically connected with my Ethio, which is Ethernet. If you do ifconfig in your network, you can see only two interfaces, which is one is Ethio and one is local. From the Ethio, they have assigned me an IP address called 192.168.0.102. And the local IP address, which is a loopback IP address, 127.0.0.1. So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna use the NIC card of my local Ethernet number. So Ethio and -R. -R stand for range. So I'm gonna specify a range from my gateway IP address, which is 192.168.0.1, and I'm gonna use a subnet mask /24. So I'm using a class C subnet mask. So over here, if I use /24, the total number of devices in my network can be connected are 254 devices. So it will scan the entire network device to identify the number of connected resources. For example, if I hit enter, I can check the number of devices in my network, and we can see the number hasn't finished. 192.168.0.1, which is my Tenda technology, my router gateway IP address. We have one more IP address, which is 192.168.0.1, which is our PCS system check GPM5. And we have 104, which is my base machine IP address, Ashutech PC. Sorry. So if I put ifconfig, I can see the IP address is my 104, my base machine IP address. So over here, we can try different types of scan. For example, I'm going to use Nmap. I'm going to use a simple ping scan. We're going to use host discovery. So I'm going to use ping scan. Only identify the number of live hosts. Disable the port scanning. I just want to check how many number of devices are connected with that network. So I'm going to use Nmap -SN and my gateway IP. Again /24 with the subnet mask.
So it will show every device is connected, isn't it?
Yes, we can check through how many number of devices are connected with that network.
So why, so for example, in real time, we are doing some pen test, okay, and that is like on other network. So what we can do on that?
Sorry.
Suppose example there is an IP, and machine is hosted over there. So if you're trying to like do our PAPT, what we want to penetrate, okay. So in that case, like suppose example, if we are running these command and map and all, so companies basically block the IP address, isn't it?
If you are a pen tester, if you are doing a pen testing, some of the commands can be blocked. Like if I'm using an advanced scan, okay. For example, -A, -T4. This will make a lot. This command will make a lot of logs files. So if you are creating a lot of log files, so it will be blocked, or the network will be disturbed. So in the real life scenario, we use some specific commands. We use SV for the serviceless version. We use -P for the port scanning. We use operating system for O. Specifying the ports. If we are merging the ports in a single query, so it will make a lots of logs so that the network administrator will disbalance the network. And your question was, if I'm on a different network on I'm doing a pen testing on a different network, and my device is on a other network. So
Mm-hmm.
in that case, you have to be on a same network.
So there is no way to connect first.
No, all you have to do is to simply get to the same network or same local area network, so you can scan the entire network devices.
Okay,
There is a different thing. If you want to simply exploit, you have to hijack one of the core network first.
makes sense.
Then you have to make a pivot, means you have to simply jump to the other network.
Okay.
So there's a lots of other things you're gonna learn. For example, I'm simply on the local network, so I can see the devices on my network now,
Mm-hmm.
which is a tender IP address, which is my router. Unknown Oracle virtual box, which is running and which has an IP address 101. My Apple iPad 103. My Ashutek. So these are the number of devices on my network right now.
Mm-hmm.
But we have a specific IP address, which is my Oracle virtual box, which is running in my backend over here.
Mm-hmm. सो आई हैव वन क्वेश्चन, एक और क्वेश्चन है मेरा। सो बेसिकली छोटा सा क्वेश्चन है, डफर क्वेश्चन हो सकता है मे बी। सपोज एग्जांपल मैं किसी कंपनी में काम करता हूँ, कंपनी के पास इंटरनल माइक्रो साइट्स हैं, खूब सारी बहुत साइट्स हैं, ठीक है, जिस पे एप्लीकेशन होस्ट है। गेटिंग माय पॉइंट? सो अब मैं एज अ पेन टेस्टर बोलते हैं कि टेस्ट करके बताओ कि इट इज गुड और नॉट, ठीक है। तो अगर मैं एम्प्लॉई हूँ कंपनी का, ठीक है, और मैं उसको एक्सेस कर रहा हूँ, तो मैं एक्सप्लॉइट क्यों करूंगा? ठीक है, मैं बाहर से ही एक्सप्लॉइट करूंगा उस चीज को ना। और जब तक बंदा हमारे नेटवर्क में नहीं आएगा, जो हैकर है जो भी है, तब तक वो एक्सप्लॉइट कर नहीं पाएगा, ठीक है। तो कंपनीज उस सर्विसेज को क्यों अपने इंटरनल मतलब पेन टेस्टर से टेस्ट करवाती है, जबकि वो किसी और को एक्सेस है ही नहीं?
जो इंटरनल आईपी एड्रेस होती है ना हमारी कंपनी की,
हम्म।
जब आप पेन टेस्टिंग कर रहे हो, तो कभी कभार हम उसे रिवील नहीं करते, हाइड करके रखते हैं दूसरे नेटवर्क में। जिसको अथॉरिटी है, जिसको परमिशन होती है, वो ही कर सकता है। अगर आप एक्सटर्नल पीटी भी करते हो, एक्सटर्नल हाईजैक करने की कोशिश भी करते हो अपने नेटवर्क को,
हम्म।
for that case you have to make some, you will find some IP address, or might be a weakness on the server side. So internal network IP address reveal नहीं होते आजकल जल्दी से। बट अगर सर्वर साइड में वैलिडेशन नहीं हो रहा, आप खुद एक कॉन्सेप्ट सोचो कि कभी
हम्म।
जब हम एक रिक्वेस्ट क्रिएट करते हैं www.google.com,
हम्म।
जब सर्वर जो रिक्वेस्ट सर्वर साइड के पास जाती है, तो वो सिंपल हमें एक रिस्पॉन्स करता है। कभी कभार रिस्पॉन्स हेडर के थ्रू भी उसकी इंटरनल आईपी एड्रेस एक्सपोज हो जाती है,
हम्म।
जो कि नहीं होना नहीं चाहिए। और ऐसा क्यों होता है? बिकॉज उन्होंने प्रॉपर सैनिटाइज नहीं कर रखा, या सर्वर साइड वैलिडेट नहीं कर रखा।
हम्म।
सर्वर साइड वैलिडेट, नॉट क्लाइंट साइड, सर्वर साइड।
ओके। तो रिक्वेस्ट जब जा रही है, तो वहां से जो आंसर आ रहा है उसमें आईपी एड्रेस आ रहा है साथ में, isn't it? You're trying to say that?
और ऐसे बहुत सारे केसेस में होता रहता है आपके। ओके, सो वन मोर थिंग, अगर वीडियो में अगर ये सब बातें हो रही है तो एक बार उसे काट देना, ठीक है? थैंक यू। सो द आईपी एड्रेस वी कैन पेनिट्रेट इज 101. So 192.168.0.101. So this is the interface of your machine called Kioptrix. And this is basically a default Apache page of your Red Hat Linux. So what we're going to do, we're going to simply gather the information from the home page first of all. Whenever you get something written or something in the graph page, you should read about this. For example, if you are administrator of the website, if you have upgraded from Red Hat Linux 6.2 and earlier, then you are seeing this page because of the default root page. Manual mode is not found over there because it was a hyperlink set in the etc http config.http file. So can anyone tell me which file is it? etc http config http.config file. This is your basically an Apache's file.
Apache.
Is it clear, Element?
Yes, yes.
So any subdirectories which existed under the home HPD should be moved to where www alternatively. can be moved to home HTTP and configuration can be updated accordingly. So as they have mentioned that this is an upgraded threaded Linux, so that's why we can see this page. And they have assigned us that this file is basically from your Apache configuration files, and most of the files are being moved to the bad www directory. So the very first thing, when you are simply getting information about a server, let's do a simple scanning phase. I'm going to use the advanced scan. But in real life scenario, we don't use the advanced scan because it will make a lot of logs. So when you are doing a simple scanning with the Nmap, first make a task list. If you are scanning a server, what are the things you need?
SV server version.
We need
Open
the
ports.
service plus their version. We need open ports. We need the operating system, etc. Or we can use some Nmap advanced scan techniques. For that, I'm going to use small capital B open port for P from 1265535, or I can use OS for operating system, and I can also use T1 to T5 time and performance. So what will happen over here? If you see, it will gonna take a 1 second over here. 1 second. Okay, that's cool. Let's gather the information about the directory over here. So I'm using a tool called Webalizer. And in Webalizer, I'm using Apache 1.3.20. They are using Apache 1.3.20, and they have web server extension. They are running services like OpenSSL, ModeSSL, and they have a specific version also. And the operating system they are using is Unix. You can download the Webalizer in your Kali Linux. You can simply visit Webalizer, identify the technology on website. We are not going to use from Chrome. We can install it for the Linux server. You can install Webalizer for identifying the technologies on the website. So it will provide you the data provider uncovering technologies such as content management system, which is your CMS, customer relation management, e-commerce platform, advertising network, and lots of things. So Webalizer is basically used to identify which are the applications are running on a specific website. For example, you can see in the Webalizer website, they are using JavaScript, Prism, Webapp, Node.js, and Stripe3. If you go to the google.com, you can also see Google is using HTTP 2 and Google Web Server. If you visit the facebook.com, no technology detected because they have hide their technology. Instagram, let's check this one. So when I use Instagram, it's showing us Facebook, that's it. Because Instagram is a part of your Facebook. So you can download the Webalizer tool from the website called webalizer.com. And as we can see that the scan has been done, then we can see different kinds of ports. 22 port number over there, which is OpenSSH. Port number 80 is over there, Apache HTTPD. Port 11111 139 443 and 3276 is also there. So we can see a lots of ports in this specific host is running, and we can see that the net BIOS name is Kioptrix level 1. Kioptrix. So if you do the manual pen testing, we can see that we are not going to exploit right now. I'm going to use a different kind of tool also. For example, I know this is a website. So we're gonna do a website crawling part also. Website crawling means identifying the hidden directories on the server, just like your robot.txt file. Robot.txt file contains all the allow and disallow directories. For example, let me show you on Facebook. So as you can see over here, these are the disallow directories from the server side. You can say user agent, Applebot, Baidu Spider, Big Not. These are basically the crawler which is used for. You can see the files over here which is disallowed. These are the disallowed directories on the server side. We can't access. And we have some few applications we can access from here. Ajax bot loader endpoint. There's a video directory. We can simply copy this one. The page isn't available, so you have to sign in. So in this scenario, what will happen? We have to gather the information about the target in a very manual way. For example, for a crawling process, we need to copy the URL, and I'm going to use a tool called Dirbuster. Identify the directories on the server side. So the target URL, the target website, and over here the number of threads. So depending on the server side, it means your skills. So I'm gonna use only 70% of my threads, and the very first thing, I have to provide a dictionary over here. So we're gonna provide a brute force attack on the directory of the URL. So the brute force directory, the word list directory is on your computers. You can use user, share, you can type word list, and you can see Dirbuster, front, Wi-Fi, Metasploit. So we're gonna use Dirbuster over here, and these are the directories over there. These are the dictionaries you can see, and it contains all the words like index, image, download, 2006, which is a part of your directories. So it contains around 2,20,560 words. So we're gonna perform a brute force attack on the URL parameter. Either you can use a large, medium, small. So it depends on over here. So browse, user, share, word list. We can use Dirbuster, and I'm going to use a small one because it will take a small time. And remember one thing, remove the be recursive. Why? Because I don't want that 2 lakh words could multiply with 2 lakhs. So it will make a huge impact. And we're going to use this dictionary for the directory buster and the files. Okay. But one thing, you should know about your website, which programming language they are using for maintaining. In the webalizer, you can see only Apache, OpenSSL, ModeSSL, and Unix. But you have to know which kind of programming language they are using for maintaining their website. For that case, I'm going to use a tool called WhatWeb. -B Verbose 10.10.10.10. Okay, sorry. 192.168.0.101. WhatWeb will analyze the server, which kind of application they are using for maintaining their website. For example, the programming language, the tools, and lots of things. So you can see the same thing, which is over here, which is email address, Apache server, ModeSSL, OpenSSL version, HTTP Red Hat Linux server. The Apache version they are using, the email address using HTTP server for hosting their website, OpenSSL for connectivity with the target. and your HTTP header, the request from the server side. So over here, they didn't mention any of the programming language they're using for maintaining their website. So by defaultly, most of the website they use PHP. For that case, we can simply write multiple if we know for finding the files. For that case, we're gonna use only the PHP over here and start brute forcing. So as you can see that they are basically testing for the directories and the file extension, and they are using PHP file extension. And you can see this, they are simply scanning the network over here. So list, you can see the what are the directories present over there and what are the files available. And through the tree map, we can see the structure of the file. Is it clear to all?
Yeah, it is. We can go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just drinking water. So we can see over here that these are the directories which have a status code. Response code 200, 403, 200, and we can open one by one all the files. In the crawling process, most of the cases, what happened, they reveal the sensitive information over the website. For example, let me show you that there is a file called test.php. We can simply open this file. And this is a normal file over there. So before attacking, you have to enumerate. The buster will tell us the directories on the server side, but they are the tool called Nicto also. Nicto is basically used for identifying the vulnerable services or misconfiguration services. Examining a web server to find potential problems and security vulnerabilities. For example, which kind of information? Like server, software misconfigurations, default files and programs, insecure files and programs, outdated services and programs. So Nicto is also a vulnerability scanner to identify the weak services running on the website. So in this case, what we're going to do, we're going to use Nicto to identify the web application. So I'm going to use Nicto -H. -H stands for a host, and you have to assign an IP address. As you can see over here, Apache Server 1.3.20, Unix, Red Hat Linux, same thing, Mode SSL version, OpenSSL, server may leak inode etext, header found. And you can see the services also. Apache version 1.3 appears to be outdated, currently is at least. OpenSSL is also outdated, the current version is 1.1.1. And the Mode SSL also is outdated. But if you go a little bit of down over here, for example, see this one, which is saying Apache 1.3.20. Apache 1.3 below 1.3.6 are vulnerable to a local buffer overflow which allow attacker to kill any process on the system. So it could be a DOS attack basically. Then comes your this one. We have Apache version are vulnerable to overflows in mode rewrite and mode CGI. And their CAN number. You can also check this one, Mode SSL 2.8.4. Mode SSL 2.8.7 and lower are vulnerable to a remote buffer overflow, which may allow a remote shell. And this is an HTTP CV data. CV Mitra is the vulnerability of your exploit, and you can read about more things about your exploit. So you can see the description. Initially is a memory user on the session function, which may allows an attacker to use a buffer overflow to execute arbitrary code, a virus on the server. So as per the security, you have to enumerate more things. For example, there is a 139 port number, 443 port number that we have done Nmap, we have done the buster, we have web also, and the Nicto. But it's all about vulnerability assessment, information gathering part. So the next thing we're gonna do, we're gonna search for the exploit of available services. For that case, I'm gonna use a website called ExploitDB. So you have to enumerate each and every services on the network. So for example, port 80, OpenHTTP with the Unix server, with the Red Hat Linux server, with the Mode SSL version 2.8.4. So Mode SSL is also a service, plus they have a specific version. Remember the banner grabbing part. Banner grabbing part is to gather the information about the services plus their version is running on there. So I'm gonna just copy the service plus version and I'm gonna put it over here on the ExploitDB. Let's use the /. Let's remove this one. So it's still processing and there is no vulnerability over here. So let's remove 2.8.4 over here. And we can see that there are some vulnerabilities according to the version of Apache server. And the year, the database, download exploit, vulnerable application, verified, and the title of the website. You can see Mode SSL version, OpenSSL, remote buffer overflow, and the type, which type of is it. Remote means remote code execution. DOS means denial of service attack. And most of the cases we don't count this one. And you can see the platform, which is Unix system. So as for the security, you have to simply check all the things one by one. For example, the OpenSSL version was also over there. But this time, I'm not going to use the ExploitDB. I'm going to use my own database, which is your search exploit. And search exploit is basically used the ExploitDB database in your local server. कुछ थोड़ा सा पोर्शन आपका ExploitDB का आपके लोकल सर्वर में भी होता है, अगर आप देखो यहाँ पे. So I'm gonna write OpenSSL, and you can see the OpenSSL version. In search exploit, you can also find the same vulnerabilities in your ExploitDB in your local terminal. Because why? See this one. Sorry. Okay. Locate function. ExploitDB, we have a local share in another network. We can access shell codes, shellcodes and exploit over here. So cd exploits the vulnerabilities, ls, you can see which kind of exploit you want. Android exploit, you have Windows exploits. You have all the exploits on your server. Either you can use exploit db for identify the bugs, or either you can use search exploit for it. For my case of concern is you have to enumerate each and everything. For example, this was OpenSSL version, and you can see OpenSSL key overflow, brute forcer for facing bugs. If you are new in cybersecurity or you are learning something, first know your victim. You should know about your victim before attacking this. For that case, I'm going to use Metasploit right now. Why? Because through Metasploit, I'm going to use the auxiliary function to identify the SMB version, because there is a port number 139 was open. Either we can use Metasploit, either we can use some GitHub tools which is available to all. For my case, I'm going to use Metasploit tool. So we're going to use the auxiliary. So I'm going to use search. We're going to use type command. We're going to use for auxiliary, and I'm going to use name string for SMB. So we can see I use a string called search, and the type, through the type string I use only the auxiliary commands, and I put the name tag. I would just want the SMBs. So all over here you will see only the auxiliaries according to the SMB. And these SMBs have different kind of scanner also. Oracle SMB relay code execution, SMB scanner check file directories equality, delete utility, download utility, listing utilities. So these are all the things over here. For example, you have to check one by one, and I'm going to use this one. Share animation. I don't want the share animation. I don't want the enum users. What are the users on the system? You can enumerate the usernames. You can enumerate the domain names, the login. A lot of things can be happen. But over here, I'm going to use the auxiliary for the detection of SMB version. So for that case, copy, use auxiliary, show options to configure. So we have to set the R host, and I have the IP address which is 168.0.101. Show options. So you have to fill the yes. Wherever the yes is required, you have to fill the target IP address, or you can simply use your threads to boost your scan process. Is it clear, element? Abhishek?
Yeah.
So
Till now it's fine.
I'm going to use call run. When I run the command, I can simply check the SMB version 2.2.1. See, this is a version. And through the SMB, most of the hackers, they simply attack on the Samba server, which is also known as your kernel. If you simply exploit the kernel, you will gain an unauthorized server. For a security analyst, you have to check, is it the Samba is vulnerable or not. So in this case, you can use search exploit again, kernel. What happened? Search exploit. Samba 2.2.1. No result. Okay. So when I put Samba 2.2.1, there was no result. But when I remove the one, I can see there are lots of vulnerabilities according to this. And some are from Metasploit. Most of them are from Metasploit. Or either we can simply do one thing. We can gather the information about the target from social media. Exploit. So in the very first thing, when I put the Samba 2.2.1.a exploit, there is a rapid7.com which showing us there's a Samba trans to open overflow. So it was introduced on the year, it was disclosed on the year 2003 and created on 2018. And over here you can see the description. What kind of vulnerability was that? This exploit the buffer overflow found in the Samba version 2.2.0 to 2.2.8. This particular module is capable of exploiting the flow of 32 bits of architecture of Linux system that do not have the no execution stack option set. No execution stack. Stack, which is basically used for your assembly language. When your application is when you are executing your application, the main function is your stack to execute. Some older version of the Red Hat do not seem to be vulnerable since they apparently do not allow anonymous access to IPC. IPC, where your Samba server version reveals, just like this one. As per the vulnerability, when I simply look for the trans to open, they showed me around 4 other vulnerabilities like these. There's exploit called FreeBSD, Linux, OX, Solaris. But we are basically using a Linux operating system. For that case, we're gonna select the Linux one. Exploit Linux Samba trans to open, which is a Linux server, which is 32 bits architecture. So let's copy this one. Use exploit, show options, configure the file, set our host, the victim IP address. So the victim IP address was 192.168.0.101, and basically it's basically attacking on the port number 139. 139 port number. So we need a stage also. So I'm going to use a payload. Show payloads according to the trans to open. So we're going to simply run a reverse shell. For that case, I'm going to send a malicious piece of code and on the port number 139, I will make a direct connection. For that case, we can see IPv6 TCP, non-TCP. There's a different kinds of things. Change mode permission, add user on the server, loop, bind metadata reverse shell for 32-bit architecture. You can use any of this one, but we're gonna use only the reverse shell. For that case, I'm gonna use Linux X36, which is your 32-bit shell reverse TCP. When this code will execute, they will give me a CMD shell. Copy, set, payload, show options, and in the payload side, remember one thing: in the payload side, you have to set your L host, which is your attacker IP address. So my IP address is 102. Set L host your attacker IP address 192.168.102, and when this payload will execute, it will give us a bin sh file, which is bin shell file. Cross check, compare with the exploit and your payload. So in exploit, we have to write the victim's IP address, and in the reverse shell payload, we have to write the attacker IP address, because the reverse connection will be attached to the port number internal 444. And let's do the exploit part. And we can see that the command shell session 1 is open over here. We have a CLI. For example, who am I? I am root over here. So basically, it was a shell. So we need a terminal. So we can write bin bash -i to get a proper TTY, a terminal over here. The main objective of this machine was to enumerate each and everything which you find on the server side and use it for the exploiting phase.
Hey, can you hear me? Hello? I mean, can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
I think he has the issue with the network, isn't it?
Yeah, it's second time, I think.